So tonight we have a returning guest who we love to have on. Her name is Miki Wright. Miki is a salon business coach and a funding expert, meaning that she helps salons get the money they need to live their dreams. She's a 3-time honoree of the 200 fastest growing salons in Salon Today. She's one of the first African Americans who had a full service salon and day spa, and she is the founder of Luxury Hair Stylist Blueprint. So please, in the comments, let's welcome the awesome Miki Wright.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Andrew. So
So happy
happy.
to have you back on. We
Yeah.
always have such great conversations.
I can't wait.
So tonight we've been kind of bantering back and forth about this for kind of a while. Something came up on, I think it was maybe something I shared on social, and you had made a comment, and we started kind of going back and forth about this concept of how we use our voice within the beauty industry. So for you, how have you been coaching people about using our voice in the beauty industry?
Well, I guess, if I kind of go back to my beginnings, it's like I was very shy as a new stylist, very
Mm.
intimidated by clients. It's like my owner would give me clients and, they would say, well, he doesn't do it that way. And, I'd just be shaking.
Yes.
And it really wasn't until I kind of found my voice and, through some coaching with my mom, who was just like, you're never going to be him. All you can do is, what you're doing and do it the best that you can do it. And so it was just evolving into that space. And so one of the things that I see now, with doing quite a bit of coaching is, we're definitely challenged with raising our prices. We're,
Yeah.
when I mentioned, telling your clients before you get started how much their service is going to be. you know I can't open my mouth and actually say that. I'd rather pray my way through and hope she likes it enough on the back end that she's going to pay and not balk, or I'm going to just kind of discount it because I don't want her to have any upset about how much it is. And so we're really not addressing, some of the key things in our business that we need to address. Things like saying no. We feel like we may be mean or that people won't like us and those types of things. There's an interview process that was going on, and there's like 3 people waiting to be interviewed, and the first person comes in, and they have kind of the usual interview conversation. And the interviewer asks the person applying, well, how long could you work with a stone in your shoe? And he replies, well, I think about an hour. I could probably work about an hour with a stone in my shoe. And, it continues, and they're like, okay, well, thank you for coming. And they bring in the next person, go through the same process. How long could you work with a stone in your shoe? And they think about it, and it's like, I could probably work half a day with a stone in my shoe. And, go on. And it's like, okay, well, thank you for coming. The last person comes in and they ask the same question. It's like, not 1 minute. I couldn't work, at all with a stone in my shoe. I would have to stop and take it out and this, that, and the other. And they're like, you're hired. And it's like, how many times do we try to say the right thing to fit in, to make
Mm.
nice, to get the job, to, keep the client, all of those types of things. And we're not really being authentic.
Yes. And that's, I think, so much of what people are looking for. We see it on social media, right? Like, if I I was listening to a social media coach, and they were talking about how if your content almost looks too produced, people won't pay attention to it because it
Mhm,
doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel like there's just that genuine touch to it.
mhm.
So I can see how, yeah, if we're authentic and we just show up as ourselves, we're going to connect with the right people. So I'm just kind of curious, with you having this person that you looked up to and saying like, "Oh, I want to be like them," because your
Mhm,
mom sounds like an
mhm.
awesome mentor, reminded you that it was all about being yourself. How did you over time develop kind of the Mickey Wright voice?
Well, some of it came from training. I actually saw a person on stage that I had, read about in magazines back when we had magazines. And I was like, wow, it's like, she's just as great in person as, seeing her work in magazines. And at first I didn't know it was the person I was looking up to. And I was like, when I found out, I was like, I could do that. And those were kind of magical words for me. Like I could do that. But
Hmm.
at the time I was very shy. If I opened my mouth, you couldn't hear me like from, here to there. And there was a lot of work to do to get to that point, but it was something that I desired. And so I really put a lot of time into it. I went to Toastmasters. I went to, I had I guess you could say the luxury of fortune of having great mentors for, I started with doing platform work. We had great trainers to be able to help us with stage presence and all of that. But my first job was with Bronner Brothers, and they had a
Hmm.
fabulous commentator, Latoya, who was like the voice of the entire show. It's like she just had this phenomenal voice. And she did all of the talking. So all I had to do was style hair. And it's like, I can do that until we got to a smaller venue and they're like, oh, we didn't bring her in today. It's like, what? And my colleagues literally like had to drag me onto the stage because I was like, can't they just see what I'm doing? I don't want
Yes.
to. So I understand the fear. I understand the shyness. I understand the, feeling a little bit more introverted. I understand feeling like, people may not want to hear what you have to say, or that you may get, I don't know, shunned for it, people leave, or just, it just feels like a little uncomfortable is the word I think I'd use.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to, right? Like us not wanting to express our voice. It really comes down to some type of fear that we have, some type of concern about showing up authentically and what will happen if we
Hmm.
do show up authentically. So
Yes.
let's use the topic of like a price raise, because I think
Hmm.
that that's I was actually just talking about this. I do some coaching for a salon coaching group called Salon Cadence. And I,
Okay.
I do kind of their mindset coaching. And this actually came up this morning about how even still today, these are all super experienced owners and coaches, and many of them still have that concern about speaking up about a price raise or talking about money.
Hmm.
So, what do you think that is? Like, why are we so concerned to be honest and open about the money stuff?
Well, I think a lot of it is really our stuff. It's like you do mindset work.
Yeah.
I actually spoke with someone within this week who was, saying she wanted to move into some different services, that were more luxury services and, of course, have a higher price tag. And so she shared with me, some experiences and things that she'd had. And she's like, I think, for some people, the price is too high. And, she had like one other thing that may have been, one of the issues why she wasn't growing in that area. And so I asked her, like, what, makes you think that the price is an issue? And she like couldn't come up with any examples at all. No one had. She's like, oh my gosh, like we're making it up. Like I feel like we're creative people, and we're so creative that we create stories, and we believe the stories that we've created, but we don't know that we created them.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like there's other things around the service that aren't, she's not connecting with the right audience. It's like, there's a lot of different variables, but we go back to it must be that it costs too much. Or if
Yeah.
someone leaves us, it's like, oh, they couldn't afford us. But it's like, no, that's not always the reason. But it is our, what we've been brought up with. I spoke with one young lady. She came because she really wanted to raise her prices, but she had so much resistance. And she did a specialty. She stopped doing that for a while because it just didn't make sense, because she was spending too much time and she wasn't charging enough. So she found someone to refer any new clients to, who charged well more than she did for the same type of
Mm.
service. She raised her price still 30% below what the other person charged. And as we dived in a little bit deeper, it came up, but I like my clients. I really care about them.
Yeah.
As if the person charging more doesn't care about their clients. And how could you raise your prices and not to feel like, it's like if I raise them, I'm not going to care about my clients.
Well, and it's funny because I'm sure as you reflected that back to this person you're coaching, they can see and very clearly that it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Of course, you know, so which is kind of the power of a great coach is, hey, let me reflect this back to you. This is what
Mhm,
you're saying, and this is what it means. How's that sit with you?
mhm.
And I just want to take a second, just hit a few comments here. Lamaris says, "Thank you for sharing, Miki Wright. You were talking about your story." And Shirley says, "My head is filled with stories." And
I
that's
see the
really
mind
true.
blow up one emoji there.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is the stories, kind of like from like a psychology background, the
Mhm,
stories are there because the mind's main purpose is it wants to protect us.
right.
And so we subconsciously build these stories out as a form to protect us. And like you said, Mickey, that thing that we're trying to protect ourselves against is like, oh, I don't want to lose my clients. Like I'm worried that they're not going to like me, or they're going to think that
Mhm,
greedy, and all of these things. Well, those stories come up because if the mind can keep us stuck, it can kind of keep us safe from
mhm,
any of those things.
right.
So once we do have the opportunity to look at like, oh, okay, well, yeah, this is just a story. It doesn't actually make any sense. We
Mhm.
can sometimes move past it. So how do you coach people to speak up and to actually have that conversation?
Well, I created the luxury hairstylist blueprint because of that, because
Okay.
it's such a big piece. Like the price part of it, like raise your prices. Okay, change the number on the front of what you're charging. That's raising your prices. But it's like we
Hmm.
won't do it because of the confidence, because of the mindset, all of those types of things. So it's like I put it together like in layers so it starts to peel back, and it doesn't take long before the next level is like, oh wow, it's like, okay, yes. And part of it is affirmations, because I always think about, the top 20% of stylists in our industry. They are having different conversations with their clients, right? 9 times out of 10. And the thing is that they're having different conversations with themselves before they have those different conversations with their clients.
Wow, that's huge. Say that again.
The affirmations, the top 20% of stylists and in any group is having a different conversation with their clients. And before they can have that different conversation with their clients, they're having a different conversation with themselves.
That is huge because so often when I hear people talk to, especially like new hairdressers, they just say, well, you just need a script,
Mm,
which there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, right, Mickey?
right.
Like, it is great to have a script,
Yes.
but if we don't change the conversation we're having with ourselves
Yeah.
before the script, it's just a script. And
Yeah.
people's BS meter is so good that if I'm just trying to kind of sell you something through a script, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel genuine. It's not going to feel heartfelt. So
Mhm.
that's why I love what you just said there. We have to have a different conversation with ourselves first
Right.
so that we can have a different conversation with the client. Talk about the head melting emoji. I love that so much.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like I really, I wanna offer, what I call my $1,000,000 stylist affirmations to everyone for being here today. I think it's, something that, it's part of the course, and I don't usually, like, give it away, but it's like I think it's such a great tool to start to use, and, we have a VIP master class, and a lot of graduates came as well as new people, and the graduates are doing phenomenal. They're charging different things, but it's like they can feel themselves sliding back, into,
Sure. Yeah.
oh my goodness, it's like, well, I really know I should be charging this, but it's like I'm still kind of just, hanging out here at this nice place. It's gotten comfortable a little bit. And, one of them was like, I got to go back to doing my affirmations every day. It's like it really makes a difference in how they're looking at themselves.
I love that. And so, with those affirmations, how would they find those affirmations?
It's like you could go to my link tree, Linktree / Miki Wright, and it just says free affirmations, I think, at the top. If
Perfect.
you superstars, yeah. So they can access them there and just, be able to download it, print it out, or keep it on your phone. Some people made it their screensaver for their phone. so they could
Mhm.
see them all the time. And, I suggest doing them night and morning if you, I mean, I think that's the best way to do it, but you may want to do them every day, like all of them. But if there's one that kind of sticks out, like, ooh, I don't really like that one, you might want to play with that one for the day and kind of almost have it as your mantra.
I love that. It's cool too that you brought up the fact that you had some people come back and they could recognize that if we let off the gas a little bit with that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
we do tend to backslide a bit.
Hmm.
And then, that happens with everything. It's easy to kind of compare this kind of stuff to something that most people have tried, which is going to the gym or something like that. And at first it's hard, right? Like you kind of
Right.
have to put in the work and then it gets hard and then it kind of levels off and it's like, okay, I'm doing my reps each day and things are going pretty good. And
Hmm.
then the holidays hit and you let off the gas. And then
Right.
in January, it's like, oh man, okay, well, I can feel myself backsliding
Right.
because I didn't keep up with the work. So I think that's a great point too, is you kind of have to keep up with the work too, or else
Yeah.
we do slide back into old habits.
Yeah. Because, if you think about it, on the low side, let's just say someone's 30. That's 30 years of having the same conversations they've been having. And then we start having a new conversation. And then that's maybe for a year, you have that new conversation. What's still pulling in a greater way is the old conversation. And like you say, our brain wants to keep us safe. It's like, it was so comfortable back there, but it wasn't comfortable, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So what other conversations or where else do you feel like as beauty professionals that we have to train ourselves to have a better voice?
Well, I think a lot of what we've been talking about is kind of the internal, voice and the thoughts that we're having about, whether we're going to say something or whether we're not going to say something. But one of the things I wanted to share is from A Star Is Born, from the movie with Lady Gaga
Hmm.
and Bradley Cooper. And there was a line in it that was just like, OMG, like what? Like that, like the mind blown thing you were just doing. So if it's okay, I was like, I'll just look at my phone and just share it because I thought it was
Yeah,
so
please.
powerful. I was able to find it. And she was young, and he could to recognize that she was talented and she was writing songs. I guess she shared a song with him that she had written, and he asked, did she sing, sing her own songs? And so this is kind of how it transferred. But look, talent comes from everywhere, but having something to say and a way to say it so that people listen to it, that's a whole other bag. And unless you get out and you try to do it, you'll never know. That's just the truth. And there's one reason we're supposed to be here is to say something so people want to hear. So you got to grab it and you don't apologize and you don't worry about why they're listening or how long they're going to be listening for. You just tell them what you want to say. Don't you understand what I'm trying to tell you? And one of the things she had said when she said, no, I don't sing my own songs. It's like I've, been to a couple different record companies and they told me my nose is too big and, I don't have the look and all of these different things that I'll never make it. And she believed them. And I
Hmm.
think, especially with the pressures of social media, we are in the beauty industry, so we know, we can transform ourselves or what have you. But I think there's still this inner core that I'm not valuable enough. I don't have something to say that people really want to listen to. They don't want to hear it from me. And I think there's a lot of, you know, combination internal, external pull of what it's supposed to look like if you have something to say.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up, and I love the quote. It's so appropriate, especially like you said, especially with what so many people are challenged by with the social media world,
Mhm.
because we do see such a polished version of people's lives, and there is kind of a popular design to how things are supposed to be shared and how they're supposed to be said, and
Mhm.
we do a lot of sculpting. In fact,
Yeah.
I have a coach right now that she's helping me build out a digital product, a
Mhm.
group coaching program that I'm going to put out here soon. And we had this exact conversation today because even I find myself sometimes being like, well, should I post this thing like this? And she's like,
Mhm.
Andrew, post it how you want to post it. Like, it's your thing. There's no rules. Like, yes, if you look at what everyone else is doing, everyone else out there is doing this type of process. Just like,
Mhm.
but that doesn't mean that's how you have to do it. And
Mhm.
so I just appreciate what you just brought there is, um, having that courage, I guess, is a
Mhm.
big part of it. To be able to say, like, well, this is what I have to say. This is how
Mhm.
I want to say it.
Right.
And that's how I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah. And that thought, that feeling, it's like it's from within, and I, I'm a God-fearing person, and I just feel like it's of the Father, that's what desire is, if you break out the
Mhm.
word desire, of the Father. And it's like there are gifts that were given to you, things that are on your mind that you want to say, that you need to say. I'm not saying like say everything that comes to the top of your head, because I think we need to be intentional, with our conversations and what we want the results to be, even though we can't control the outcome. But one of the areas that I find this affects us a lot is because, like I said before, we're really creative. And in our heads, we have all these great ideas for this client that's sitting in front of us when we're doing a consultation.
Yeah.
How often do we not share them
Right.
with that client? It's like, oh, it's like, let me share something I'm seeing, in addition to, the images you brought in, the lookbook and all that kind of stuff. It's like, what if we did some sunlights around the front? What if we did a stronger money piece? And they're coming to you because they want you to help guide them. It's like they see the images and it's like, oh, that looks really cute. But, we're there to analyze their hair and tell them, is this something that's going to look great on you and your hair? Maybe your hair is a little more fine and we need to do X, Y, and Z to make it actually look better. Maybe this will look absolutely fantastic on your hair, but you have 2 and 3 year olds and a full-time job and a husband
True.
and a part-time job. And when are you going to take care of this? And so we really need to be able to express what we need to express to guide our clients. And I think that actually builds more of a great relationship, than keeping it to ourselves and saying, oh, okay, let's go to the bowl.
True. So true. There's a couple comments here I want to bring in because
Yeah.
they're awesome. Brenda says, in 30 years of hair, bottom line is time is money. Do not sell yourself short, as people will pay your price or they will move on. Yeah,
Mhm.
so true.
Mhm.
There are enough clients out there for all of us to make a decent living.
Mhm.
Yes, Brenda.
Yes, Brenda.
And I love this from Lee. Lee says, thank you for giving us chicken soup for the stylists, artists, healers, etc. This is what I
I
needed to
love
see
that.
and hear today. I'm a new cosmetologist at 43 years old and trying to find my thing. So
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah, well,
Thank you,
welcome to
Lee.
the industry, Lee.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. There's kind of a story that I don't share, I guess, all that often, but it pertains, I think, who was the first person who's kind of
Brenda.
Brenda? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of times we want to be friends with our clients, or want this, or this relationship develops because we're not consciously creating a professional friendship with them.
Right.
And we think they're
Mm,
our friends when in reality, all the relationships in the salon, it's a one-sided relationship. We're there for them. They're not there for us. That's not a friend. And so it was a lesson, I guess, I learned early on, even before I got into the industry, because I grew up around the industry. My mom went to school when I was a baby, and wasn't in it my young life, but went back into it and had her own salon. And actually, she and my dad, were owners, even though my mom was the stylist. And when I was 16, my dad passed away.
mm.
And there were people calling the salon that couldn't understand why the salon was closed after my dad passed away.
Oh, they knew that your dad had passed and they
Yeah.
still didn't understand?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I need my hair
Yikes.
done. It's like I'm going to an event this weekend. I've got to get in. And just I
Mhm.
guess seeing that and absorbing that. I wasn't into hair. I wasn't planning on a career in hair or anything like that. It's like I just know that if you don't take care of yourself, no one is going to take care of it, care of you for you.
Right.
The
Wow.
clients aren't our friends, they're clients. They want their service done. And I get it, but it's like, we're human, and these experiences and all of those things happen. And my experience is not the only time I've heard that. you know, in the industry, but it made me approach, I guess, the way that I work with clients. And I've formed some fabulous relationships over the years. And it's so great to have, people who would still come to you. I'm not doing hair anymore, but because of the relationships that we built, but it wasn't like because I thought they were my friend, and of course, I've had a couple friends, people who became friends or people who were friends before who were clients, that type of thing. But I think clear boundaries is really another area that we really need to, as a industry, work on, and
Yeah,
trusting, like Brenda said, that there's enough for all of us. And the
right.
reality is, you really don't need that many clients as a hairstylist.
That's the truth. And there's something that you said that I want to draw attention to
Hmm.
because I think it was really key too. Is you said something about consciously creating these friendships, like designing it as if
Hmm.
hey, this is the way I want this relationship to be. And that does require that we're pretty clear on boundaries too, of like, hey,
Hmm.
here's what you can expect, which
Right.
is yet another place that I know from my own experiences when I was a salon owner and the people I've coached too. This is a really challenging place for people to say, hey, let's use the example of like cancellation policies.
Hmm.
It's like, well, this just happened once. I'm not going to say anything. And it's like, well, what are we telling them then if we don't bring it up? So yeah, there's these. How do we set good boundaries with and intentionally kind of create these relationships?
Yeah, well, I think it's building our own confidence in terms of what we want for our career. Because a lot
Hmm.
of us, especially when we come in, we're newer, we're trying to find our way. For me, I needed clients immediately. I was supporting myself, and my story was having to go back to, get a real job so I could pay my bills. And so I needed clients. So whatever you want to get done, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
But as we progress in our whole career, it's like we need to assess kind of where are we going, what do we want it to look like. And I remember like one of the first times when I started saying no, and it was like the young lady on the other end was not hearing me say no at all. Like I had to keep repeating. And it was, I didn't even take calls because we had a great receptionist and she took most of the calls. But it's like, I guess she pounded the receptionist enough that she came and got me. I got on the phone and she's like, I really need to get in tonight. It's a Friday night and I'm booked, so I don't have anywhere to put you or anything. It's like, oh, well, I don't mind coming in late, and this is after I've said no like 8 times. But I was like, but I mind staying late. It's like, this is not gonna happen. It's like I'm here late Friday night and I'm gonna be back up early Saturday morning. And none of that is, your concern, but I know what I need to do. And staying here so
Mhm.
that you can go, because she's like, oh, I don't mind coming late because I can just go straight to the party. It's like, oh, that's cute. It's like but yeah, I think it really is, getting once we get clear on what we want, we might have to say no several times, but it's like, hold your guns and everything else starts to work out a lot easier.
Yeah. Shirley mentioned that
Mm,
COVID was kind of an eye opener on client expectations, and yeah, I wasn't in the salon during COVID. I had already been out of the salon for a couple of years at that point, but I heard lots of stories of
mhm,
just kind of similar to what you just said there, Mickey. Just people being kind of ruthless about,
mhm,
well, how am I supposed to get my hair done? And it's like,
right.
I don't know. None of us know what the hell to do right now. Like, this has never happened before. You think I
Yeah.
have a plan for a virus that shuts down a country? Like, come on.
Yeah, this is our all of our first global pandemic, okay? Yeah, and
Uh,
like I've stopped doing hair like right in August of 2019, so kind of right before all of that hit. But in all of my years of doing hair, it's like I've never met a hair emergency. It's like, no, your hair will survive. Get a cap if you need to. Get a, a wig. It's like there is a way for you to make this work, and it's like, I'm happy to help you. If I were still doing hair, I would definitely take care of my clients. But, you know, and I think the expectations a lot have still stayed, even after the shutdowns and getting back, that there's a
Mhm.
lot of people who are very demanding and very, you know, um, wanting what they want, when they want it, how they want it. And
Yeah.
that isn't how we operate our businesses.
So what does it sound like to set a boundary with a client? Like, what would be a great way for us to, of course, with compassion, not just like, you know, go
um,
away, but, because we don't want to offend them either. So what's a good way to set a healthy boundary with a client?
Yeah, and I think what you just said is really, really key. It's like we're afraid of coming off as being mean, or, the B word, as a female or what have you. But it's like, you don't have to be mean at all. It's like I did a thing on like how to say no. It's like there's all kinds of ways to say no, and you don't have to be mean with any of them. And
Right.
so, I think if we can kind of lift that, from the equation, that helps a whole lot. But any particular client, I can think of one, but any particular client scenario you want me to navigate?
No, I mean, if you have a specific example that you can share, go for that. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And if anyone else who's watching has one, throw it in the chat. But I had a client who was, her job took her as far as traveling, and so she used to have a great stylist where she lived, but she was always on the road, so she was always in all these different places. And she had a
Mhm.
very, very high lift blonde, and her hair, like, that hair when you touch it, it just starts to like trickle down because it's
Oh
like in
boy.
such bad shape. And she
Yeah.
came in to get her color retouch. And it's like, we're not doing a color retouch. I didn't tell her like that, but it's like, based on what I'm seeing with your hair, it's like, we really need to start with a deep conditioner. It's like, you're not going to be here to come back for any other treatments. You're going to be in different cities and that type of thing. And we really created something that was more workable for her new lifestyle, that she would kind of ease out of being in that high lift blonde, because that wasn't something she could keep up with, being in 20 different cities in 20 weeks. It's like you're never with the same person twice, and your hair is starting to show the challenges. And so, and giving her a nice care program that she could work with on the road, some products and that type of thing, and how to use them. And so she wasn't offended that I said no. Of course, she wanted to get the color, and we did something to bridge in between what she wanted. But it's like there was no way that I was going to put a high lift color on that hair that was already disintegrating.
Right.
Yeah. And so
So
really
it
being
sounds like
clear
you
about what
just,
you want.
yeah. So you started out with like, hey, here's the reality. Like, here are the facts. Here's the information, which I
Hmm.
think is a great way to navigate some of these conversations. Is just being really straight and really honest with, here are the facts. Here's the information that we have,
Right.
based on your lifestyle, based on the current condition of your hair, based on this. This is what I would suggest, and it keeps us from that word of no.
Hmm.
Because no closes doors, right, Mickey?
Hmm.
Like, as soon
Hmm.
as you say no,
Hmm.
it's like, oh, okay, conversation's over.
Hmm.
But what you did with her is, hey, here's what I'm seeing. You're
Hmm.
continuing the conversation. Here are your options. You're
Hmm.
continuing the conversation there.
Right.
You're not telling her just straight up, no, you can't have what you want.
Hmm.
You're giving them options still, which I think is really key when it comes to these healthy ways to set boundaries. Is no just sounds kind of like what
Hmm.
we said we don't want, which is just that like
Yeah.
hard edge, like I can't be pushed around here kind of attitude.
Hmm.
So, recognize what's real and then give them options.
Yeah, and I would say that that's definitely your first line, if that's an option. For sometimes you do have to say no, and you just have to deal with however they feel and however you feel. It's like I had a lady that came in, and she literally had open wounds on the top of her head, and she wanted to get her color service. She had seen, it's like, oh, I think I'm allergic to this kind of color, and this is why this happened. But I'm not allergic to the kind that that I'm planning to get today. So you can go ahead and apply that. And there was like, ma'am, I know you can't see the back of your head, so I'm going to show you with a mirror. your scalp is open. I can't even service you at all. It's like you're going to need to see a dermatologist, and you know, you need to get a patch test, you know, and it sounds like you are allergic to hair color and you're not going to be able to continue getting hair color. And I know this is not what you want to hear, but this is, you know, the reality, like you said, the facts, you know. It's like we can't work on scalps that are open. It's like we're not doctors, we're not there to diagnose. It's like we don't even need to know what it is. I see a lot of posts on social media. It's like, well, what is, you know, what do you think this is? It's like we can tell from a picture from your camera, you know, translated or
Yeah.
whatever. We're not trained to diagnose, and we're not licensed to diagnose. And all we need to know is, does this look like a healthy scalp? Okay, I can do it. If it does not look like a healthy scalp, they may need to see some medical attention before we can service them. And
Yeah.
she left a little upset, but I'd rather have her upset than a lawsuit. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's like,
yeah. Think of how much more upset she would have been if you actually would have done the service and burned the crap out of her already wounded scalp.
right, 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 exactly. So we as a professional have to make those professional, you know, recommendations, whatever that may look like. And it's not always easy, and it's not always pretty. And so, yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Just a little off topic. Shirley Nelson says, off subject, Mickey, your hair color is
Oh,
fantastic.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And she Shirley also had a question of, did the options that you gave that client, did it provide some relief as far as trying to maintain something that can't be maintained with their lifestyle? So I think back to the first example
Mhm,
where it
mhm.
was the color with the person that was traveling a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, part of our job is like to make a friend. And you know what I mean? Not like your best friend, we're gonna go out and have drinks after we leave this situation. It's like, but to create a bond between you. And it's like that was one of the things that I did with her. And so, you know, she was like, you know, she wanted to be, you know, a high lift blonde, and she didn't leave a high lift blonde. But even before we got to the bowl, because a lot of things happen, or should happen, I should say, during that consultation time. I call the consultation like your secret profit center. Everything
Mhm.
that needs to happen will happen in that first 15 minutes or so if we take the time to really listen and make professional recommendations. But a lot of people have made the decision whether they're coming back during that time before they even get to the bowl.
Well,
And so she had already told me, it's like, oh, well, you know, if I come back, you know, through this area again, it's like, I'm definitely going to come to you, you know, and we hadn't even got to the shampoo part. And she hadn't even seen her finished hairstyle or any of those things. So I think it's really being confident, being comfortable, making a friend, you know, making it so that they can, you know, digest your recommendations.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I guess it kind of comes back to that first story that you told, about the interview with, like, how long can you work with a stone in your shoe? And we think that we're giving people what they want to hear, to kind of keep that friendship.
Right.
And in the end, your honesty, your straightforwardness was actually what she loved and why she will return to your chair if she
Mhm.
does come back through.
Right.
Whereas she's probably had lots and lots of other hairstylists that just, when she sat down and said, "Hey, I need my color retouched," "Yes, ma'am," and just went and started mixing color.
Right.
You actually said the uncomfortable thing, and that gained you respect and a rapport with the client, which is
Yeah.
such a great way to look at that.
And I think that's such a key word. It's like, you know, we need to get to a point where we'd rather be respected than friends.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Mickey, it's already been almost 45 minutes for us.
Right.
I'm sure that we're leaving people on kind of a cliffhanger here because there's a lot more that we could share. So, what are some of the ways that they can continue to learn from you?
Yeah, well, it's like I definitely shared, you know, it's like I'd love for you guys all to get the affirmations because I think that will help you tremendously. Right now, I just got back from the International Beauty Show teaching. I taught a couple classes, but one was called Get Fully Booked. And it was jam-packed, and there were a lot of people who were looking for, how do I get not only clients in my chair, but maintain it so that I can get, consistent income, consistent clientele. I look at my book ahead and there's people on it, those types of things. And so I'm meeting with people one-on-one for a 30-minute get fully booked profit plan session. And it's only $29 right now. So it's for a limited time, but it's like you can jump on it from my link tree as well if you'd like to meet, one-on-one. And definitely follow me on Instagram. It's like that's a good place to keep up with me. And I'm going to be doing a little bit more on my YouTube. So, but
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
it's like, but definitely check out the link tree. And it's like I do the luxury hairstylist blueprint as well, which is really about building that confidence to be able to raise your prices, elevate your prices and your guest experience in 6 weeks or less. And so if
That's
you're
great.
interested in that, I can talk with you about it.
Yeah, lots of great opportunities for people. And Miki's a legend. She's been around for a while, y'all. Like, she
Yeah.
knows what's up. So, yes, don't make sure you take her up on these offers. Miki,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It's so funny because before we started, we were joking about how behind the scenes, this particular Wellness Wednesday took a while for us to get to a date, and I screwed up the dates one time. So I'm so happy that we actually got to hang out tonight and to share this really important topic about how do we share a voice in the industry.
hmm Yeah. And I want to just leave everybody with, like your voice is really your power. And so, the more you can own, what's in your head to let it come out and to be able to share and basically be a blessing for others, it's like the better things start to work out.
Perfect thing to finish on. Thank you so much, Miki.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. And Zambia, Wellness Wednesday, I'm happy to be here. And thank you, everybody that was here and joined, and especially the comments. Appreciate it.